Hi, in this lesson we want to talk about rate word problems. So word problems in maths relate to problems that are described in English with little to no mathematical representation. Now it's worth noting that the NBTs are written in English or in Afrikaans. So in whichever language, basically you are given in words, but you have to convert those words into variables, algebraic expressions and equations that you can evaluate. So what are the steps that you should follow when solving these kinds of problems? Step number 1. Always make sure that you read the problem carefully. So if you understand the given information, you'll be able to identify what exactly is being asked by the question. And that would lead you to step 2. You need to define your variables. So defining your variables is related to assigning variables to the unknowns and assigning values to your knowns. You can be told something about Thabo, represent that with T. You can be told something about Sarah, you can represent that with S. Let's say since this is a rate problem, you're told that Thabo takes 2 hours to travel 40 kilometers. And then they usually phrase them in this way: Sarah takes twice as long. So that would be 2 times 2, because twice is 2, twice as long as Thabo traveled 2 hours, so that would be 4 hours. And then take twice as long to cover the distance. So that same distance, 40 kilometers. And then they would ask you, calculate the difference in speed between Sarah and Thabo. And then you would need to first figure out what this is, and you need to figure out what that is. So defining your variables is saying, okay, what I'm looking for is the difference in speed. So it will basically be the speed of Thabo minus the speed of Sarah, depending on whoever's faster will come first. But then that is done. You go to step 3. After you define your variables, you identify the rate formula. So identify rate formula. Now there is only one rate formula: distance is equal to speed over time. And you can use this formula to try and figure out your unknowns. So yeah, this is the formula you use. In this case, you arrange it in such a way that you're solving for what you're looking for. So actually it's distance is equals to speed multiplied by time, because it's dst, like that. The time is equals to distance over speed, and speed is equals to distance over time. So in this case, you are going to be looking for the speed. So speed is equals to the distance that you travel over the time that it took you to travel that distance. And then you're going to apply this formula for both Sarah and Thabo. So that's the rate formula you're going to use. Then step number 4, you want to set up and solve your equations. So set up and solve equations. In this case, that would be 40 over 4 for the speed of Sarah. You set it up and then you solve it. And then for speed of Thabo, that would be 40 over 2, like that. And this one will give you 20 kilometers per hour. This one will give you 10 kilometers per hour. And then lastly, you solve it. So now you substitute your value. Say, okay, 20 minus 10. The difference in their speed is 10 kilometers per hour. And then all that you have to do is make sure your units are correct. You've been using kilometers per hour all throughout, and that's about it. So in multiple choice questions there might be 10 meters per second, but you are looking for 10 kilometers per hour. So don't get lost and forget to check if the units correspond. And then that is it. Lastly, you can just check if that makes sense. So interpret your solution. So you are now going to ask yourself, okay, Sarah traveled 4 hours for 4 hours, traveled 40 kilometers for 4 hours, and Thabo 40 kilometers for 2 hours. So clearly Thabo was going faster, so it makes sense for him to have a higher speed than Sarah. And then once you are satisfied, then that is it.